They heard humans say, "Leave it to us," and then watched a miracle. Unfold, the emergency lights flashed red across the massive council chamber. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the room, their voices rising in panic. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few looked like walking crystals. But today they all shared the same expression: fear. High Chancellor Vexthar stood at the center platform. His blue skin had turned pale. His three eyes blinked slowly as he delivered the worst news the galaxy had heard in centuries. "The star in the Tavros system is dying," he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "In 6 months it will collapse into a black hole. 12 inhabited worlds will be destroyed. 47 billion lives will end." The room erupted. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded solutions. Others wept openly. A few simply stared at the holographic display showing the dying star, its surface already cracking and burning in unnatural ways. Science Director Kelnara stepped forward. She had 4 arms, and all of them trembled as she activated her datapad. Charts and numbers filled the air around her. "We have tried everything," she said quietly. Her voice was tired. "The Vryn Confederation sent our best scientists. The Calthian Empire shared their most advanced technology. We have run 10,000 simulations. Every single one ends the same way. The star cannot be saved." An older delegate from the Threxian Council stood up. His voice was sharp. "What about evacuation?" "We have ships. We have time." Kelnara's shoulders dropped. "We calculated that too. To evacuate 47 billion people, we would need every transport ship in 5 sectors. Even then, we could only save maybe 3 billion. And we would need 2 years, not 6 months. The chamber fell silent. The math was simple and brutal. Most of those people were going to die, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. In the back of the room, 3 humans sat quietly. They wore simple gray uniforms with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Captain Daejung Kim sat in the middle, his face calm. To his right, Dr. Hana Park studied the holographic data with intense focus. To his left, Ambassador Taewon Lee watched the panicking aliens with patient eyes. High Chancellor Vexthar noticed them. He had always found humans strange. They were new to galactic society, barely 150 years into space travel. Most species took thousands of years to reach the stars. Humans had done it in a fraction of that time, but they were still considered children by galactic standards. "Does Earth have anything to contribute?" Vexthar asked. His tone made it clear he expected nothing useful. Ambassador Taewon stood slowly. His hair had turned gray at the temples, but his back was straight. "We would like to examine the data," he said simply. "Give us 48 hours. Several aliens laughed. One delegate from the Vryn Confederation stood up, his voice mocking. 48 hours? Our scientists have worked on this for weeks. What makes you think your primitive analysis will find something we missed?" Captain Daejung's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Ambassador Taewon remained calm. "Nevertheless, we would like to try." High Chancellor Vexthar waved his hand dismissively. "Fine, take your 48 hours. But do not waste our time with false hope." He turned to address the full council. "We will reconvene in 2 days. Until then, prepare evacuation plans for as many as we can save, and pray for a miracle we know will not come." The council session ended. Aliens filed out of the chamber, their conversations full of grief and anger. The 3 humans remained in their seats, waiting until the room was nearly empty. Dr. Hana Park finally looked up from her datapad. Her eyes were red from staring at screens, but they were also bright with something that looked like excitement. "Did you see it?" she asked quietly. Captain Daejung leaned closer. "See what?" Hana pulled up a complex chart. Lines and numbers danced across the holographic display. To most people, it looked like chaos. But Daejung had known Hana for 10 years. When she got that look in her eyes, something important was happening. "The star's collapse is not random," Hana explained. She pointed to a pattern in the energy readings. "Look here. Every 73 minutes, there is a pulse. The energy fluctuates in a specific pattern. The aliens think it is just random death spasms, but it is not. The star is trying to stabilize itself." Ambassador Taewon moved to stand beside them. "Explain it simply, Doctor." "I am a diplomat, not a scientist." Hana nodded. "Think of it like a heart attack. The heart is failing, but it is still trying to beat. If we could support it at exactly the right moments, we might be able to keep it alive. Not as it was, but as something different. Something stable." Daejung studied the pattern. Years of military training had taught him to see opportunities where others saw only problems. What would we need? Hana's fingers flew across her datapad. More charts appeared. Everything. Every construction ship humanity has. Every piece of advanced equipment from at least 3 sectors. Enough exotic matter to power a small planet. And perfect timing. If we are off by even 1 second, the whole thing fails catastrophically. Catastrophically meaning? Taewon asked. Meaning we could make the black hole form faster, Hana admitted. We could accidentally kill 47 billion people weeks earlier than they would have died anyway. The 3 of them stood in silence for a long moment. Around them, the empty council chamber felt enormous. Through the windows, they could see the dead world of Tavros 7 rotating slowly below them. It had been beautiful once before its star began to die. Captain Dae-jung spoke first. What are the chances this works? Hana bit her lip. Honestly? Maybe 30%, maybe less. We would be attempting something no species has ever done before. We would be rewriting the rules of stellar physics in real time, with no room for error. And if we do nothing? Dae-jung asked. 100% chance that 12 worlds die, Hana said softly. Ambassador Taewon looked at both of them. In his long career, he had negotiated treaties, prevented wars, and built bridges between species. But this was different. This was bigger than politics or diplomacy. This was about whether humanity would try to help, even when success seemed impossible. Our species has a history, Taewon said slowly. When others said we could never leave our planet, we built rockets. When they said we could never survive in space, we built stations. When the galaxy said we were too young, too primitive, too reckless, we proved them wrong every single time. He looked directly at Hana. Can we do this? Hana met his gaze. I think so, but it will take everything we have, and people will die trying. This is not a safe plan. This is a desperate plan. Dae-jung smiled for the first time that day. It was not a happy smile, but it was determined. Dr. Park, in the history of humanity, when have we ever chosen the safe plan? Hana laughed, surprised. Then she nodded. Never, not once. Then we have work to do, Taewon said. Captain, contact Earth Command. Tell them we need every ship they can send. Doctor, prepare your presentation for the Council. Make it simple enough that even the skeptics can understand. We have 48 hours to convince them to let us try. As they left the chamber, none of them noticed Science Director Kel Nara watching from a shadowed doorway. She had stayed behind, curious about the humans. She had seen Dr. Hana's excitement, heard their conversation. Part of her wanted to warn them away. The math was clear. The star could not be saved. Attempting the impossible would only lead to failure and shame. But another part of her, a part she had thought was lost years ago, felt something strange stirring. It was something she had not felt since she was a young scientist. Before endless failures had taught her caution. It was hope. She watched the 3 humans walk away, already planning their impossible mission. And for the first time in weeks, Kelnara wondered if maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was wrong about humanity. Maybe being new, young, and reckless was not a weakness. Maybe it was exactly what they needed. They heard humans say, "Leave it to us," and then watched a miracle. Unfold 2 days passed like 2 years. The council chamber filled again, but this time the mood was different. The panic had turned to resignation. Most delegates had accepted that millions would die. Now they were just arguing about who would get saved first. The holographic displays showed evacuation plans, ship routes, refugee calculations, cold, hard numbers about who would live and who would be left behind. High Chancellor Vexthar looked even more tired than before. His 3 eyes had dark circles around them. "We have reviewed all options," he said heavily. "The Vryn fleet can evacuate approximately 2.8 billion people. The Calthian transports can take another 700 million. Other species have pledged what ships they can spare. In total, we might save 4 billion lives. 43 billion will die," someone whispered. The words hung in the air like poison. Vexthar nodded. "Yes, we must accept what we cannot change. Now we vote on evacuation priority. Should we save based on age, species, proximity to? We have another option." Ambassador Taewon's voice cut through the grim discussion. He stood in the same spot as before, flanked by Captain Dae-jung and Dr. Hana Park. The chamber went quiet. All eyes turned to the humans. Vexthar's expression mixed annoyance with curiosity. "You have had your 48 hours. What did you find? Another evacuation plan?" "No," Taewon said simply. We found a way to save the star. For 3 full seconds, nobody spoke. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in disbelief. Some laughed. Others looked angry that humans would waste their time with fantasies. Vexthar raised his hand for silence. When the noise died down, his voice was cold. Dr. Kelnara and 200 of the galaxy's finest scientists have declared this impossible. What makes you think? May we present our findings? Dr. Hana interrupted. She stepped forward without waiting for permission. The massive holographic display activated. A 3-dimensional image of the dying star appeared, rotating slowly. Red lines showed the collapse patterns. Blue sections marked the energy fluctuations Hana had noticed. The star is not dying randomly, Hana began. Her voice was clear and confident. It is following a pattern. Every 73 minutes it tries to stabilize. It fails because it does not have enough internal pressure to counteract the collapse. But that pattern gives us a window, a chance. She touched her controls. The hologram changed, showing a network of structures surrounding the star. They looked like a massive web made of light and metal. We call this the Prometheus Protocol, Hana continued. We will build a containment array around the star. At precise intervals, we will inject exotic matter directly into the stellar core. The exotic matter will create artificial pressure, supporting the star's natural stabilization attempts. Over 72 hours, we will force the star to compress into a stable neutron star instead of collapsing into a black hole. Science Director Kelnara stood up. Her forearms gestured at the display. This is theoretical physics. No species has ever attempted controlled stellar compression on this scale. Not yet, Hana agreed. But the math works. I have run the simulations 4,000 times. Success is possible. Possible is not certain, Kelnara argued. What is the success rate of your simulations? Hana hesitated for just a moment. 34%. The chamber erupted again. Delegates shouted that 34% was not good enough. That humans were reckless. That attempting this could make things worse. An elderly Vryn scientist stood, his voice dripping with contempt. You have been in space for 150 years. We have been exploring the cosmos for 10,000 years. And you think you can rewrite stellar physics? This is arrogance, not science. Captain Daejong had been silent until now. But at those words, he stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the chamber. Arrogance, he repeated. Let me tell you about human arrogance. 300 years ago, humans were told we could never leave our planet. The math did not work. The technology did not exist. It was impossible. We did it anyway. 200 years ago, we were told we could never terraform Mars. The atmosphere was wrong. The temperature was wrong. It could not be done. We did it anyway. 50 years ago, when we first met you, we were told we were too primitive to join galactic society, that we needed another 1,000 years of development. He paused, looking around the room. We are here anyway. Not because we are smarter than you. Not because we have better technology. But because when the galaxy tells us something is impossible, we hear it as a challenge, not a conclusion. Ambassador Taewan took over smoothly. The evacuation plan saves 4 billion people. 43 billion die. That is your certain outcome. Our plan has a 34% chance of saving everyone. To us, the choice is obvious. And what if you fail? High Chancellor Vexthar demanded. What if your exotic matter injection destabilizes the star further? What if you cause the collapse to happen faster? Then those 43 billion die a few weeks earlier than they would have anyway, Daejong said bluntly. But at least they die knowing someone tried. At least we do not abandon them just because the math looks bad. Dr. Hana brought up new displays. We will need resources. Every megastructure constructor in 3 sectors. The Vryn Confederation's exotic matter production facilities. The Calthian drone network. 200,000 automated construction units. And the entire human fleet. The cost would be enormous, someone protested. Even if we wanted to try this insane plan, gathering those resources would take months. We have the resources lined up already, Taewan said calmly. Earth Command began mobilizing the moment we identified this plan. Human construction ships are already entering this sector. Our industrial capacity is at your disposal. Kelnara looked at her data pad, checking something. Her eyes widened. You are serious. You have already started moving ships here, before even asking permission. We are not asking permission, Taewan said. His voice remained polite, but there was steel underneath. We are asking for cooperation. We will attempt this with or without galactic support, but we have a much better chance if you help us. Vexthar stared at the humans. His expression was unreadable. You would risk this much on a 34% chance? Yes, all three humans said at once. The High Chancellor looked at Kelnara. Can this actually work? Not theoretically. Actually? Kelnara studied the human data for a long moment. Her four hands moved across multiple data pads at once, checking calculations, running quick simulations. The chamber waited in tense silence. Finally, she looked up. The mathematics are sound. The exotic matter injection theory is radical but logical. The timing requirements are brutal, and the margin for error is almost zero. But yes, in theory, this could work. The humans are correct about one thing. The star's pattern does give us a window. A very small window. In theory, Vexthar repeated. All new science starts as theory, Hana said quietly. Then someone has the courage to try it. Another delegate stood. She was from one of the threatened worlds. Her voice shook. My planet is one of the 12. My family lives there. 3 billion people on my world alone. If there is any chance at all, I vote we try. Others from the threatened world stood as well. Their voices joined together. They were willing to risk the human plan, because risk was better than certainty of death. Vexthar raised his hand. We vote. All in favor of allowing the human Prometheus protocol to proceed? Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the chamber. Not all of them. Many older delegates still looked skeptical. But enough. More than enough. The motion passes, Vexthar announced. He looked directly at Ambassador Taiwan. You have your approval, humans. The resources you requested will be made available. But understand this. If you fail, if you make things worse, the galaxy will remember. Your species will carry that shame forever. Taiwan nodded slowly. And if we succeed? For the first time, Vexthar smiled. It was a small, sad smile. If you succeed, Ambassador, then I suspect the galaxy will learn to never again doubt humanity. As the council adjourned, Captain Daejung, Dr. Hana, and Ambassador Taiwan stood together, looking at the holographic star. It was still dying, still collapsing, still counting down to the death of billions. 34%, Daejung said quietly. You told them 34%. Hana did not look at him. Yes, what is the real number? She was silent for a moment. 28%, but I rounded up. For morale. Daejung laughed, surprised. 28%, well, Earth has beaten worse odds. Have we? Hana asked. No, Daejung admitted. Not really. This is going to be the hardest thing humanity has ever attempted. Ambassador Taiwan put a hand on both their shoulders. Then we had better get started. We have 6 months to perform a miracle. Captain mobilized the fleet. Doctor, coordinate with the alien science teams. I will handle the political side and keep the council from panicking. As they separated to begin their impossible task, Kelnara approached them. She looked uncomfortable but determined. I want to help, she said simply. I have spent my whole career being told what is impossible. Maybe it is time I learned from a species that never learned that word. Dr. Hana smiled and held out her hand. After a moment, Kelnara took it with one of her 4 hands. They heard humans say, "Leave it to us," and then watched a miracle unfold. The space around Tavro 7 transformed overnight. Where there had been a quiet observation station, now there was chaos. Ships poured through warp gates every hour. Human vessels, alien transports, construction platforms, and supply freighters filled the void until the orbital traffic controllers were overwhelmed. Captain Daejung stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, his flagship. Through the view screen, he watched another wave of construction ships arrive. 27 vessels this time, each one carrying building materials, exotic matter containers, and eager crews. Sir, that makes 412 ships total, his first officer reported, with another 200 expected within the week. Daejung nodded. He had not slept in 36 hours, but coffee and determination kept him moving. Good. We are going to need every single one. What is the status of the Helios array? Foundation nodes are being positioned now. The Vrin engineers say we are ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule means nothing if we are not ahead enough, Daejung muttered. He pulled up the construction timeline on his display. 5 weeks to build something that should take 6 months. Every piece had to fit perfectly. Every connection had to work on the first try. There was no time for mistakes. Down on one of the construction platforms, Chief Engineer Subin Kung was living proof that humans could work miracles. She was covered in grease, her hair tied back messily, shouting instructions to 3 different work crews simultaneously. No, no, no. That support strut goes at a 45-degree angle, not 90. Do you want the whole node to collapse when the star starts throwing plasma? She did not wait for an answer. And you? Yes, you with the welding torch. That seam needs to be perfect. Perfect, understand? We are building something that has to survive inside a stellar corona. Good enough is not good enough. A Calthian worker approached nervously. Engineer Kang, we have a problem with the magnetic containment generators. 3 of them were damaged during transport. Subin's eye twitched. Damaged? How badly? The Vrin engineers say they cannot be repaired in time. Subin stared at the ceiling for a moment as if asking the universe why it hated her. Then she grabbed her toolkit. Cannot be repaired by Vrin engineers, maybe. Show me. I will fix them myself if I have to. The Calthian looked doubtful but led her to the damaged equipment. Subin took one look at the broken generators and started laughing. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had accepted that nothing would be easy. This is held together with hope and prayer, she muttered. Okay, I need 3 spare plasma conduits, a micro-welder, and about 6 hours. Go, move. Meanwhile, in the command center, Dr. Hannah Park was fighting a different battle. She stood in front of a holographic display showing the star's latest readings. Around her, scientists from a dozen species argued about exotic matter injection rates. The compression ratio is too aggressive, a Vrin scientist insisted. You will trigger a cascade failure. If we do not compress it fast enough, the collapse will overtake us, Hannah countered. We need to be aggressive. This is reckless. This whole plan is reckless, Hannah snapped. That is the point. Careful and safe already failed. Now we try reckless and brave. Kelnara stepped between them before the argument could escalate. Perhaps we can test both approaches in simulation one more time. We have a few hours. Hannah took a deep breath. Fine. But we are running out of time to debate. At some point we have to commit. She was right, and everyone knew it. The star was not waiting for them. Every day its collapse accelerated slightly. Every day the window for success grew a little smaller. On the bridge of a small fighter, Commander Jiwoo Choi led a squadron of 50 drone coordination ships. Their job was to manage the 200,000 construction drones that would assemble the most delicate parts of the Helios array. All pilots, this is Commander Choi, she said into her comm. I know you are tired. I know this is tedious work. But every single drone, every single connection matters. One mistake and we fail. One perfect execution and we save 47 billion lives. So double-check everything. Triple-check it. Be slow, be careful, be perfect, her squadron acknowledged. Jiwoo looked at her own drone control screen. The drones moved like a swarm of metal insects, each one following precise instructions. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. 2 weeks passed. The Helios array began to take shape. From a distance, it looked like a spider web made of light and metal, slowly wrapping around the dying star. Up close, it was thousands of nodes, millions of connections, and billions of calculations all working together. But problems kept appearing. During week 2, a solar flare from the unstable star destroyed 3 construction platforms. 12 workers died instantly. The platforms had been building critical injection nodes. Captain Daejung received the news in the middle of the night. He stared at the casualty report, memorizing every name. Then he called an emergency meeting. We lost 3 platforms, he announced to his command staff. We need to rebuild them and stay on schedule. Options? An engineer looked at the timeline. Sir, it is not possible. Those platforms took 8 days to build. We have maybe 4 days before we fall behind. Then we work faster, Daejung said simply. Double the crews. Triple them if you have to. I will authorize overtime for everyone. We will sleep when this is over. Sir, the crews are already exhausted. And they will be more exhausted if they have to live knowing they could have done more. Daejung interrupted. I am not asking them to die. I am asking them to work. There is a difference. Make it happen. The platforms were rebuilt in 47 hours. The crews worked in shifts that blurred together. Coffee consumption quadrupled. Minor injuries increased, but the timeline held. Week 3 brought a different crisis. The exotic matter synthesis facility could not keep up with demand. They were producing at maximum capacity, but it was not enough. Dr. Hannah found the solution, though it was painful. We cannibalize the ship reactors, she told Captain Daejung. 20 of our larger vessels have reactors that can be converted to produce exotic matter. It will leave those ships dead in space, but do it, Daejung said immediately. If we fail, those ships are useless anyway. If we succeed, we can tow them home and rebuild them. The order went out. Within 12 hours, 20 human ships went dark as their reactors were stripped and repurposed. The crews volunteered without hesitation. They would drift in space for weeks, possibly months, but they did not complain. This was the human way. When the mission mattered, comfort did not. Week 4 tested everyone's limits. The Calthian delegates began to panic. The star's collapse was accelerating faster than predicted. They demanded a meeting with Ambassador Taewan. The timeline is failing, their leader said bluntly. Our scientists calculate the star will reach critical collapse in 5 weeks, not 6. You must activate the Prometheus protocol early, or it will be too late. Ambassador Taewan looked at Dr. Hana, who had been working for 72 hours straight. Her eyes were red and her hands shook slightly from too much caffeine. We can adjust, Hana said, though her voice was uncertain. We move the activation date forward by 1 week. It means the Helios array will only be 94% complete, but it might be enough. Might be? The Calthian delegate demanded. Might be, Hana repeated firmly, because that is the best I can give you. Either we try at 94% or we watch everyone die at 0%. Your choice. The Calthians left unsatisfied but without alternatives. That night, Captain Daejung found Hana sitting alone in an observation lounge, staring at the dying star. He sat beside her without saying anything. After a long silence, Hana spoke. What if I am wrong? What if my calculations are off? What if we kill them all faster? Then we kill them all faster, Daejung said. His honesty was brutal but somehow comforting. But we will have tried. That counts for something, does it? Hana asked. Does trying matter if we fail? Daejung considered the question seriously. I think so. Because if humanity only did things we were certain would succeed, we would still be in caves. Every great achievement started with someone trying something they might fail at. You are standing in the latest chapter of that story. Hana smiled weakly. No pressure then. All the pressure, Daejung corrected. But you are not carrying it alone. Every person on every ship knows the stakes. We all volunteered for this. No one was forced. We are here because we believe you. We believe this can work. I hope I am worth that belief, Hana whispered. Week 5 arrived with a final crisis. A critical shipment of containment field generators was delayed. Without them, the Helios array could not maintain the exotic matter streams. Chief Engineer Subin did calculations and announced the impossible. We need to redesign 6 major nodes using different technology, she said at the morning briefing. The Calthian gravity generators can substitute. It will be inferior, but it will work. How long to redesign? Captain Daejung asked. 48 hours. Maybe more. You have 36, Daejung said. Because in 37 hours we start final assembly whether we are ready or not. Subin stared at him. Then she grinned. 36 hours, fine, I was getting bored anyway. She was not bored. She was terrified. But fear was just another problem to solve. They heard humans say, leave it to us, and then watched a miracle unfold. The countdown began at exactly 0600 hours. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched live feeds of the Helios array. Some prayed, some hoped, some were certain they were about to witness disaster. Dr. Hana Park sat in the central command station, surrounded by screens showing data from 10,000 sensors. Her hands moved across controls with practiced precision. Around her, scientists from 15 species monitored their own stations. The room was silent except for the steady beep of the countdown timer. Captain Daejung stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, positioned at safe distance from the star. His crew sat at their stations, tense and ready. They had worked 5 weeks for this moment. Now they could only watch and hope. Ambassador Taewan was in the observation gallery with High Chancellor Vexthar and dozens of other delegates. They stood before a massive window showing the dying star and the delicate web of the Helios array surrounding it. I still think this is madness, Vexthar said quietly. But I admit it is impressive madness. Taewan did not reply. His eyes were fixed on the star. The countdown reached 0. Dr. Hana pressed the activation command. Initiating Prometheus protocol. All nodes begin exotic matter injection on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Across the Helios array, thousands of injection ports opened simultaneously. Streams of exotic matter, glowing with unnatural colors, shot toward the dying star. They looked like rivers of light flowing into an ocean of fire. For the first 30 seconds, nothing visible happened. The sensors showed the exotic matter reaching the star's outer layers, beginning to penetrate toward the core. Internal pressure readings started to climb slowly. Injection stable, Kelnara reported from her station. All streams maintaining coherence. No turbulence yet, someone muttered. Hour 1 passed. The exotic matter continued flowing. Deep inside the star, impossible things were happening. Pressure was building in ways that should not be possible. The star's natural collapse was beginning to slow, just a fraction. Hour 2 brought the first signs of success. The star's surface, which had been cracking and flaring wildly, began to stabilize slightly. The pattern Dr. Hana had identified was strengthening. The star was responding to their help. "It is working," Kelnara said, her voice filled with disbelief. "The compression rate is within acceptable parameters. The star is actually stabilizing." Cheers erupted in the command center. Scientists hugged each other. Someone started crying with relief. "Stay focused," Dr. Hana snapped. "We are 2 hours into a 72-hour process. Do not celebrate until we are done." But even she could not hide her smile. Maybe, just maybe, they were going to pull this off. Hour 3 destroyed that hope. The star erupted, not a normal flare, but a massive explosion that sent plasma bursting outward in all directions. Alarms screamed across every station. "Critical failure in Sector 7, someone shouted. 3 array nodes are gone. The containment field is breaking down." On the view screen, Captain Daejung watched 3 of the Helios array nodes simply vanish in the plasma wave. The carefully balanced network of exotic matter streams began to wobble. "Can we compensate?" he demanded. "Trying," his engineering officer replied. "Rerouting streams through backup nodes." "But we are losing coherence." In the command center, Dr. Hana's fingers flew across her controls. Numbers cascaded down her screens. She made calculations in her head that would take computers minutes. "Commander Choi," she called into the comm. "I need your drone squadron to reinforce Sector 7. Form a temporary containment field using your ship's deflector arrays." In her fighter, Jiwoo Choi heard the order and immediately understood how dangerous it was. Flying that close to the unstable star with plasma storms raging was nearly suicidal. But 47 billion lives were at stake. "Squadron, form up on me," she commanded. "We are going into the fire. Stay tight and keep your deflectors at maximum." 50 small ships dove toward the dying star. The heat was incredible. Shields began overloading almost immediately, but they held formation, their deflector arrays linking together to create a makeshift containment field. "It is working," Kelnara reported. "The stream coherence is stabilizing. Commander Choi's squadron is buying us time." "How much time?" Hana asked. "Maybe an hour. Their shields cannot hold longer than that." Dr. Hana looked at Chief Engineer Subin, who was coordinating repairs on the damaged sector. Subin did not even look up from her console. 90 minutes, Subin said. "That is how long to build replacement nodes and get them online." "You have 60, Hana said. "Make it 75 and I will include a warranty," Subin shot back. 65. "Final offer." "Deal." Subin immediately started shouting orders to construction crews. Materials were gathered. Prefabricated components were rushed into position. Work that should take days had to happen in an hour. It was impossible. Chief Engineer Subin specialized in impossible. Commander Jiwoo Choi watched her shield strength dropping. 50%, 40, 35. The heat was so intense that her cockpit displays were starting to malfunction. "Squadron, rotate positions every 5 minutes," she ordered. "Spread the damage. No one stays in the hot zone longer than 5 minutes." The fighters began cycling through positions like a choreographed dance. The ones in the back moved forward to take the worst heat, while the ones in front dropped back to let their shields recover. It was exhausting and dangerous, but it worked. Hour 4. Jiwoo's shields were down to 20%. Around her, 3 fighters had already been forced to retreat with failing systems, but the rest held position. "Come on, Engineer Kang," she muttered. "Work your magic." In Sector 7, Subin was welding nodes together personally. Her hands moved so fast they were a blur. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. But pieces came together. Node 1 online, someone reported. Node 2 online. Node 3 experiencing power fluctuations. I see it. Subin grabbed a replacement power coupling and physically yanked out the faulty one. The metal was hot enough to burn through her gloves. She did not care. The new coupling snapped into place. Node 3 online. All sectors report stable, Kelnara announced. Commander Choi, you can withdraw. Jiwoo did not need to be told twice. Squadron, fall back. Nice and easy. As her fighters retreated, she counted them. 47 had survived. 3 had been lost to the heat and radiation. 3 more crews who had given everything. She would remember their names. She would make sure everyone remembered their names. Hours 5 through 9 passed in tense stability. The exotic matter injection continued. Inside the star, the compression process was working. Slowly, impossibly, the collapse was being controlled. But hour 10 brought a new crisis. Dr. Hana stared at her readings in disbelief. No, she whispered. No, Kelnara looked over.
What is wrong?
The magnetic containment field. It is 0.3% misaligned. Hana pulled up detailed scans. Probably damage from the plasma burst earlier. It is barely noticeable now, but as the compression continues, that tiny misalignment will magnify. In 4 hours, it will cause a catastrophic containment failure. Can we adjust it remotely? Captain Dae-jung asked from his ship. Hana shook her head even though he could not see her. No, the adjustment has to be made manually. Someone has to fly to Node Alpha 7 and physically realign the magnetic coils. Silence filled the comm channel. Everyone understood what that meant. Node Alpha 7 was deep in the stellar corona. The radiation there would kill anyone within minutes. It was a one-way trip. How long does the adjustment take? Captain Dae-jung asked. His voice was calm. Maybe 3 minutes if you know what you are doing, Chief Engineer Subin said quietly. Then I am going, Dae-jung announced. He was already moving toward the hangar bay. I built this operation. If someone has to finish it, it should be me. Captain, no, his first officer protested. Send someone else. Send a volunteer. I am volunteering, Dae-jung said simply. He reached the hangar and climbed into a reinforced shuttle. Besides, I am the ranking officer. That means I get to make the fun decisions. Ambassador Taewon's voice came through the comm. Dae-jung, you do not have to do this. Yes, I do, Dae-jung replied. He was already running pre-flight checks. This is what command means, Ambassador. You do not ask people to do things you would not do yourself. He paused for a moment. Tell my daughter I kept my promise. I left the galaxy better than I found it. Before anyone could stop him, the shuttle launched. It was heavily shielded, built to withstand punishment. But nothing could truly survive where he was going. Dr. Hana watched his trajectory on her screen. Tears ran down her face. Dae-jung, you do not have to. Yes, I do, Doctor, he interrupted gently. You did the impossible by finding a solution. Let me do the impossible by making sure it works. The shuttle dove toward the star. The heat was beyond measure. Radiation levels climbed past fatal within seconds. But Dae-jung kept flying. His comm started breaking up as the radiation interfered with signals. Approaching Node Alpha 7. On the view screen, they watched his small shuttle become a tiny dot of light against the star's massive surface. Then the dot disappeared into the corona. For 2 minutes, there was silence. Every sensor in the command center was focused on that one location. Every heart waited. They heard humans say, "Leave it to us," and then watched a miracle. Unfold 3 months had passed since the impossible became reality. The space around the newly stabilized neutron star was no longer filled with construction ships and emergency vessels. Instead, a beautiful memorial station orbited quietly, built from pieces of the Helios array. The station's central chamber was enormous. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled it today. Humans stood beside Vryn. Calthians talked quietly with species who had traveled from the 12 saved worlds. Everyone wore expressions of gratitude, respect, and sadness. At the front of the chamber stood a monument. It was simple but powerful, a statue of Captain Dae-jung Kim in his uniform, reaching toward a representation of the Helios array node. The node glowed with soft light that pulsed every 73 minutes, matching the pattern that had saved a star. Inscribed at the base in 50 different languages were 4 words. They said it could not be done. Ambassador Taewon stood at the podium. His hair had turned completely gray in the past 3 months. He looked older, wearier, but also somehow stronger. He waited for the crowd to settle before speaking. 3 months ago, the galaxy faced an impossible choice, he began. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. Except that 47 billion people would die or try something that had never been attempted. The galaxy chose to try, but it was humanity that chose to pay the price. He paused, looking at the statue of Daejung. Captain Daejung Kim was not a scientist. He was not a politician. He was a soldier who understood duty. When someone had to fly into hell itself to save this mission, he did not hesitate. He did not look for someone else to volunteer. He simply went. Taewon's voice grew stronger. 20 other crew members died in the construction and execution of the Prometheus Protocol. Their names are inscribed on the walls of this station. They came from Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies. They were young and old, experienced veterans and recent graduates, but they shared one belief, that when the universe says something is impossible, the only proper response is to prove it wrong. He looked out at the crowd. Our species has a history. When others said we could never leave our world, we built rockets. When they said space was too hostile, we built stations. When they said we were too primitive for the stars, we came anyway. Not because we were special, not because we were smarter or stronger, but because we refused to accept that problems have no solutions. In the crowd, Dr. Hannah Park stood quietly. She had been asked to speak, but she had declined. The words did not come easily anymore. She had saved 47 billion lives, but the cost haunted her. Every night she saw Captain Daejung's shuttle disappearing into the star's corona. Every night she wondered if there had been another way. Beside her, Chief Engineer Subin Kang squeezed her hand gently. They had become close in the months since. Both of them understood what it meant to make decisions that cost lives to save lives. It was not the kind of thing you could explain to someone who had not lived it. Ambassador Taewon continued. The galaxy asked us if we could save a dying star. We said yes. The galaxy doubted us. We worked anyway. The galaxy calculated our odds of failure. We ignored them. Because humanity learned long ago that odds are just numbers. They tell you what probably will happen, not what must happen. And we have always preferred must to probably. He gestured toward the memorial. This station stands above what is now officially called Daejung's Star. The Galactic Assembly voted unanimously to name it in honor of the captain who gave everything to save it. Every person on the 12 saved worlds will grow up learning his name, learning what he did, learning what humanity stands for. High Chancellor Vexthar stood from his seat. His 3 eyes were red, something that happened when his species experienced strong emotion. He approached the podium slowly. Ambassador Taewon stepped aside, making room. Vexthar faced the crowd. When he spoke, his voice shook slightly. I was wrong about humanity. Not slightly wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. He looked at the human delegation. When your species first joined the galactic community, we called you reckless. We called you primitive. We said you had not earned your place among the stars. We were the ancient ones, the wise ones. We had 10,000 years of civilization. You had barely 150 years in space, he paused. And yet, when faced with a problem that our 10,000 years of wisdom said was impossible, you solved it. You did not solve it carefully. You did not solve it safely. You solved it with determination, sacrifice, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Vexthar turned to Ambassador Taewon. The Vrin Confederation formally apologizes to humanity. We were blinded by our own pride. We forgot that wisdom is not just about age. Sometimes the newest voice in the room has the best idea. Sometimes youth and audacity matter more than experience and caution. He addressed the full crowd again. The Vrin Confederation proposes a permanent alliance with Earth and her colonies. We also propose that humanity be given a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. They have earned it with blood and brilliance. The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives from dozens of species stood, showing their agreement. Even some of the skeptical older species were nodding. Dr. Hannah Park felt tears on her cheeks. It was not joy exactly. It was relief mixed with grief. They had succeeded. The cost had been terrible, but they had succeeded. After the ceremony, people moved through the memorial station, reading the names of the 21 humans who had died. Each name had a small description. Their age, their home, what they had been doing when they died. A young Calthian child stood in front of Captain Daejung's name. Her parent knelt beside her, speaking quietly. This human flew into our sun to save it. He knew he would die. He did it anyway. That is what heroes do. The child looked up. Why? Because some people believe that every life matters, that 47 billion lives matter more than one. He was one of those people. I want to be like him when I grow up, the child said. Her parents smiled sadly. Then learn to be brave. Learn to be kind. Learn that impossible just means nobody has done it yet. In another part of the station, Commander Jiwoo Choi walked through a section dedicated to her squadron. 3 names. 3 pilots who had died holding position in the stellar corona, buying time for repairs. She touched each name gently. We did it, she whispered. You did not die for nothing. Remember that wherever you are, a voice behind her spoke. Captain Choi? She turned. It was a representative from one of the saved worlds. He looked nervous but determined. I wanted to thank you, he said. My wife and daughters live on Kalith 3. Because of you and your squadron, they are alive. I will never be able to repay that. Jiwoo shook her head. We were doing our job. You do not need to repay anything. Still, the man said, if you ever need anything, if Earth ever needs anything, our world will answer. This I promise. He was not alone. Over the next hour, dozens of people approached Jiwoo with similar messages. Gratitude, promises, pledges of support. It was overwhelming. Chief Engineer Subin Kang found herself in a similar situation. Scientists and engineers from a dozen species wanted to learn from her. How had she rebuilt nodes so fast? How had she improvised solutions under impossible pressure? I just did what needed doing, she said, uncomfortable with the attention. Any good engineer would have done the same. No, Science Director Kelnara disagreed. She had become Subin's close friend in recent months. Any good engineer would have tried. You succeeded. There is a difference. Later, in a private room, the core team gathered. Dr. Hana, Chief Engineer Subin, Commander Jiwoo, Ambassador Taiwan, and Kelnara. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, too tired for words. Finally, Hana spoke. I have been offered the Grand Science Medal, the highest scientific honor in the galaxy. Congratulations, Jiwoo said. I turned it down, Hana continued. I'm going back to Earth. I'm going to teach. The others looked at her in surprise. Ambassador Taiwan asked, why? You could write your own ticket. Any research facility in the galaxy would be honored to have you. Because the next generation needs to know, Hana said simply. They need to understand that they can do impossible things. But more importantly, they need to understand the cost. They need to know about Captain Dae-jung, about the crews who died, about what it really means to attempt miracles. She looked at her hands. I am establishing a school, the Dae-jung Institute for Advanced Stellar Engineering. Every student who enters will learn 2 things on their first day. First, that impossible is just a challenge, not a conclusion. Second, that attempting the impossible often requires sacrifice, real sacrifice, and that sacrifice must be honored. That is good, Subin said quietly. The galaxy should remember what this cost. What about you, Subin? Taiwan asked. What are your plans? Subin grinned. I am leading something called the Prometheus Initiative, joint human-alien project to stabilize other dying stars. Turns out there are at least 6 more stellar collapses predicted in the next century. Now that we know it can be done, we have a responsibility to do it. You are insane, Jiwoo said, but she was smiling. Says the woman who flew into a sun. Subin shot back. What about you, Commander? Or should I say Captain? I heard about your promotion, Jiwoo nodded.